maybe it does.
And they're off.
That's right. Somebody's in the waiting room.
Hello, everyone.
Kathleen?
I think we're all ready to go.
Yeah.
Good. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the select board meeting of 7:27 to order. Thank you for being here. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Somebody like to make a motion? Thank you, Brad. Second. Thank you, Lindsay. Any changes, corrections, additions? I think everything is pretty much as presented. Okay, all those in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to have moved to a regular agenda for discussion? Okay. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Farhan. Is there a second? Thank you, Nick. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
But I will abstain from the minutes.
Okay. Mess me up here. Order. Oh, I see. You're saying it's part of the consent agenda.
Yes.
Got it. I'm like, where are the minutes? Okay. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity to raise or address issues not otherwise included in the agenda. Is anyone here for something not on the agenda?
I don't have a copy of these yet.
Okay.
What are you here for?
What are you here for?
Well, I'm concerned about the condition of the roads and the sidewalks. And
Okay.
And the frequent painting of the stripes at the crosswalk, especially down south. It seems to be too frequent and too often, which has cost money. And I understand that maybe contracts waiting down the road. But meanwhile, they keep doing it every other day, it seems like sometimes. That's like, I frequent the area. I live out the South Village Apartments. And I'm always going down there, and then it surprises me every time. I see bright colors on the road, and then suddenly there are no colors. Then, it's faded within a few days, and then it painted again, kind of just standing around doing nothing. If there are contracts pending, these issues should be weighted. The work that precedes these contracts should wait till the contracts are accepted and being done, not at some future time. Even the roads here too, they're all, what do you call it? Let's sit down.
Yes.
Please.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, just so we have a record for the minutes.
Oh, Ben Bird.
Thank you, Ben.
I've been here about 30 years now, so.
So just to clarify your concern, was there a particular road or sidewalk that you were
No, just in
concerned?
general.
Just in general, okay.
We're a tourist town. We're having tourists coming in, walking on these, what impression does this give them that we can organize such a thing so that they have to walk around tripping conditions and get into the stores. It doesn't make it good for the stores either because people are walking on the sidewalk, they can trip on the sidewalk. So if there are contracts being issued, correct these various things. Once the contract is accepted or has been accepted as it would be started, that would be the time to start correcting some of the things they need prior to the contract being done. But just to keep it like this for weeks and weeks, I've never seen it like this. I mean, I've been here 30 some odd years.
Are you talking about the paving project?
Yeah, I'm talking about the paving process.
Okay,
Yeah, and the potholes, the holes on the sidewalks. You know, these are, there are people pushing carriages, there are elderly folks pushing their wheel, you know, their thing. So, and I'm an elderly guy too, and it's hard for me also. So, that's a big concern of mine. And, I'm just curious what can be done, or why is it being done, why is it like being done this way?
so if you're referring to the paving project going on right now, all of the state is paving our class 1 roads.
Well, I
And
know,
I think some of the delay is probably weather related because they do the paving at night. And we, as you know, have had a lot of rain the last few weeks.
I know, but they're painting so frequently, it's like every few days, and they're painting. And they're painting at night.
Paint, what,
Line striping.
okay,
I think it's the temporary lines.
yeah, okay. So,
I mean, it can be temporary.
So I'm also the chair of the infrastructure committee, so I'll bring your concerns there. Just so you know, we do contract annually to do a certain amount of sidewalk repair and road repair every year within what the town has approved in the budget. And infrastructure committee meets monthly on the second Thursday. And you're welcome to come to those meetings and have conversations as well.
I know that there's budgets put aside for it, but I've never seen it in my 30 years here, conditions like this in downtown. And our downtown where we depend on the income from the store administrators, depend on the income from the tourists.
So maybe what we'll try to do is get an update on the paving project and get back to you on it, okay?
Okay, sure.
All right?
Thanks for listening.
And we've noted your concern and I'll make sure it gets to the infrastructure committee. Thank you. Was there anyone else here? Hi, Laura. If you don't mind, if you come up to one of those two chairs, we can pick you up good on the speaker and the camera.
Hello, friends.
Hi, Laura.
The other thing I would say, just as a footnote to what Ben raised, is that part of what I've learned when I was on select board is that there's a shortage of contractors that could work. So not only are we hitting weather-related constraints, but shortages in terms of people who can do the work, and that we're in the queue to get that help when we can. And it's unfortunate that it's taking as much time as it is, and this is how it is. We're hitting COVID, and everybody's experiencing labor shortages, us too, and paving projects also, which is, you know, something we have to endure. But it will be good to get that update. So I just wanted to note that from my experience on the select board, for Ben's benefit too. So that's one thing. I'm here on behalf of the Homelessness Task Force, which I've been convening for the month of July. And some of you know about that, especially if you also serve with me on the Public Health and Safety Committee. So I did it on behalf of the Public Health and Safety Committee because we anticipated that there could have been a lot of need for coordinating as the hotels emptied, and we expected in the summer that there could be an influx of a lot of people in the downtown, and what would we do to prepare for that so that people could be safe with access to public bathrooms or whatever else their basic needs were. So I just wanted the select board to be aware that that conversation has been happening weekly on Thursdays. And there have been notes, and those have been shared with Kathleen. And I don't know if you've gotten those notes, but I just wanted to highlight some of that. So what I'm hearing from the social service agencies, which are at the table for that, and also residents who have formerly experienced homelessness and are giving us some input, is that what they're looking for from the town really is for us to be good friends and to have a posture where we're not seeing them as them. They don't want to be seen as them, like those people. They want us to be welcoming, and they're hoping that we can create some kind of welcome center, a community center, where they could and others, the public could drop in, and it could include public bathrooms. It could include other amenities maybe, but mostly it's like a day station, which the Charter House used to have and currently doesn't have because of COVID conditions and because they needed all their space for housing, people. So what used to be their day station is now used for cots for people to sleep. So there is no day station. The public library here kind of functions that way by default, but it's not really ideal because at least when it used to be at the Charter House, the social service agencies had a place where they could go and they could meet with people, just drop in. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of that, like that's a need that's out there that's being discussed and that we're looking at, like where would that be and what would that look like? So that's going on. And then we're also aware that the Turning Point Center of Addison County is looking to convert St. Mary's into a recovery center. And some of you may have seen that story too. And the Homelessness Task Force likes that. Like they like that model of having, somebody that creates affinity housing, like small scale, where the idea for the Turning Point is that it would be a drop-in, but also where maybe 5 to 6 people could be housed at the same time. And that follows the model that we now see with Women's Safe, that we see with Charter House itself, and with counseling service, with group homes. So they like that direction of having like that kind of solution to limited housing, like the select board doing whatever it could, and the planning commission and DRB doing whatever it can to get behind zoning regulations that would allow for more of that in the downtown. So I know that we're about to go through that review of our zoning bylaws, and you're going to see that pretty soon. I met with the planning commission this past week, and Jennifer Murray did a great job of updating us and saying they are on board, with the downtown master plan. They understand this need, and that we're going to be seeing this, going into the fall, and you will be too, and that we look forward to that public engagement and hope for that support, on behalf of the select board. I hear social services agencies saying, it doesn't seem like the select board cares about this. And I tell them, no, they do. They have a lot going on. It's very dire for them right now. They're under an enormous amount of pressure, the social service agencies, in addressing the mental health crisis that we have, and not only people who are experiencing homelessness, but are on the verge of it, or just newly settled and still like having a hard time connecting. So it's stressful, and they're looking for, again, they're just looking for a tone from us that we care, again, that we're good community friends and that we can help wherever possible. So I'm just here to report that.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Was there anyone else here for something that's not on the agenda? Okay. So I don't think we had anything filling the number 5 spot for the placeholder. So we'll go to number 6, consideration of the Energy Committee's recommendation on the solar net metering and request for a bond vote. So we had this conversation last time, and I think I was probably the deciding vote in that. We had a 3 in favor, 1 abstention, 3 opposed, I think, or 2 opposed. So we didn't have.
That was for Chairman Parker.
We didn't.
Oh, you're right. You're
We didn't
right.
vote on this.
You're right. Sorry.
We didn't vote.
Sorry, I've jumped ahead. It's okay. We didn't vote on the solar.
No.
Right. I've got too many things going on in my head. I apologize. All right, so let's, does anyone need to review any of the information, any of the questions?
Well, I
I
think
see Howard and Steve are here.
I think the most important thing is to bring up is
Oh, the update from Ben?
yes.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to see the late email from Ben offering 15%? That's in the packet, right? I read it from the email. Any questions?
There's an update on how many units, panels are now available. Last week it was, 2 weeks ago, 65% were already.
So with the way they have it arranged is it's a minimum of 15%.
Right.
Because right now they're selling the units.
Right.
So it comes down to what's available at the time, if there's a vote taken and it's approved, how many units are available at that point in time. What they're doing is reserving a minimum of 15%, and if more are available, then go up to 25%, which is what we were recommending.
Well, right now they don't have 25% left. Is that correct?
They did last.
Literally as of today, we have commitments for 77% of the total, so there's roughly 23% available. And the change that was made after the select board meeting 2 weeks ago was basically to recognize that you would have a concern about potentially having a vote in the town and then finding that the project was all sold out. So basically reserved a minimum of 15% and up to whatever else is left at the time that the vote occurs.
Okay. And the way I understand it, we obviously, if we're going to do this, we have to get a bond approval, which we can't do till the end of August. Then we have to wait 30 days till the end of September before we can actually do that. So without some type of guarantee like that it wouldn't be worth us going through the effort of the bonding process. Unless we had some type of commitment where we knew that what we're bonding for, we'd have something to purchase. It would be unfair to the staff and for the community to be doing this process without having a guarantee.
That's the 15%.
That's the 15%.
Question, Howard, and Steve, or whoever can answer. In the calculations, do we still have the same payback period for that, even with 15%?
Well, that's just a portion, right? So it would be the same, I think.
The short answer is yes. You would have fewer units, but each unit has the internal rate of the return and the payback period, so it doesn't change.
Because the original 25% was not about the payback period, it was about maximizing our net metering availability, correct?
Okay.
So whether you reduce to 15 or 25, we should still see that same payback period.
Yeah.
We're reducing the number of panels, but we're also reducing our upfront costs.
That's right.
Right. So
Okay.
there'll still be a savings, net savings every year, starting in year one.
Okay. So I would just start and say that a big plus for me on this project is the location of the solar, it being on a brownfield and using space that we couldn't necessarily use for other things. That is a big plus for me. The thing that was holding up my decision was the expense to hold a bond vote without any commitment. So the fact that we have to change the Ripton special meeting to a Australian ballot vote anyway means we have that expense regardless of whether we decide to bond for the solar or not. So I think I'm in favor of it. Does anyone else want to comment or? Nick?
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that it kind of feels like another one of these 11th hour things. I'm sitting there saying, well, okay, why didn't we hear about this sooner? I mean, this feels to me like, one of those sale items where you have a limited time opportunity to make a purchase and this opportunity may never appear again. I'm thinking, well, why this late? Because I personally, I don't buy things on a short-term notice without some good deliberate thought of what I'm doing. And so I don't know if this is the best way for the town to approach the renewable energy approach. I appreciate the effort that the Energy Committee's put into it. I know it's a good thought, but I'm still, this last minute, with such a short time that we have to make a decision, get a bond vote out there, go through the review, is unsettling to me, especially for a 25-year commitment. I'm trying to think of other things that we have bonded for. We do bonds for things like water, wastewater, buildings, streets, sidewalks. We have control over those things through our town manager. In this case here, we're kind of coming up with almost $323,000. And for the first 6 years, we're not going to have really much say into how it's spent. Now, we're going to trust it's going to be done well, but we don't have any oversight from any of our public staff. So I'm wondering, do we want to give up the control of this amount of the taxpayers' money? I'm reluctant to do that. Again, I'm reluctant to enter into a 25-year agreement for what's a very dynamic industry. Shorter time period, I may have been more agreeing to it, but for 25 years, I think we're really running into a situation we're going to have obsolescence at a later point. And I've heard that we can sell our shares, and I appreciate that, but who's going to buy obsolete? Something better is coming along. So I'm uneasy about that. I also, appreciate the fact that we got all this. This is a lot of information, and I'm wondering, should this not have been reviewed by council? Had we more time, could have been reviewed by council to make sure that in fact we are getting an agreement that is good for the residents, the taxpayers, the citizens of Middlebury. Make sure now that there's not something in there that leads us into a flawed agreement. I know the Acorn people are good people and have done due diligence, but again, we have to protect the town's interests. So I would want town council to review it, and I'd also want to make sure that I still haven't heard from town staff as to what demand is going to put on them. We've agreed that we're not going to overburden our staff, and I haven't heard from Kathleen or anyone else as to what their time demand is going to be and resource demand is going to be to move this through to the bond vote process and managing it beyond any oversight that we may have. So with a variety of factors, well, again, I've said I'm a big fan of renewable energy, and I see it working very well in many, many parts of the country. Just came back from a week working out in Central California. That's for solar, really. But I'm reluctant to endorse going forth on motion, especially since we keep seeing decreased amounts of what may be available to us from 25. Now we're down to maybe 15%, without having the time to really do diligence and make sure that we're getting this right. So as much as I want to endorse it because of the renewable aspect of it, I'm most likely I'm not going to because of these other factors, which I think need to be vetted before we proceed.
Yeah.
Two things, well, three things actually. Ask Kathleen about the burden of the staff right now.
Hello? Hello there, everyone. I didn't hear what the question was. I just heard my name.
Turn off the Olympics in the background. I think the question that Nick was proposing is this bonding issue and doing the solar project, what type of burden would that place on you and the staff?
So Anne will be doing the heavy lifting on the election. But as she has indicated, we have to do a bond vote for we have to do an election for the Ripton vote anyway. So there's that. As far as the additional burden on staff, we always find a way to get it done.
Kathleen, how much of a burden is, we have a net metering arrangement now with the solar behind the police station, correct? Does that
and we also have the New Haven solar array, and I think that's more of an administrative burden on us. And I would put that at the order of 20 hours a year.
Okay.
The interesting thing about the bonding and the difference, Nick, and I'll talk a little bit about this, is in this case that we're bonding is what we're doing is actually going to pay for the bond. The savings in electrical energy is actually going to pay back for this bond. So it's a different, typically when we get a bond, we do it, we build something with it, and we pay for it. We pay that bond down. It's a long-term 30-year investment. In this case, the savings that we're going to make with purchasing electrical energy is going to pay for this bond. So it's virtually at no cost. And although last time they showed that over a 25-year period we'd have a savings of $180,000, if we're not, it will be less than this, but it's all proportional. So no matter how many panels we buy, we still get the same rate of return on those panels for however long we want them. And the technology is today's technology. What it'll be like in 25 years will be outdated, yes, but it's today's technology. We really can't make savings on technologies we're waiting for.
Well, the question I have is, does Green Mountain Power have to buy this for the 25-year duration? And I'm sitting there thinking of a situation as if in their portfolio, it is a certain amount of solar, a percentage. And another technological advancements, we know they're happening, come along and effectively double the output capacity of a similar size array. Can Green Mountain Power say, you know what, Acorn, done okay for now, but we're going to buy from these guys because they can provide more at less cost? Are they locked into buying from you?
As I understand the certificate of public good, Green Mountain Power is locked into buying the electricity produced by the array for 25 years. And they're also locked into the adder arrangement for the first 10 years. So by virtue of the Public Utilities Commission examining our proposal, looking at the design, listening to any potential objections from nearby abutters, the PUC grants the certificate of public good, and that becomes effectively a license for us to be generating 500 kilowatt AC power for the next 25 years, and for Green Mountain Power to be compelled to purchase it.
And if these panels, do you agree to the point you're not providing 500 kW? Presumably we have to go along and replace them or update them to achieve that goal or that requirement.
We factored into our model the sort of industry view of degradation, which is about 0.5% per year. So that by the end of 25 years, they're down to about 85% of the kilowatt hours generated that they would be on day one. Our experience in the project behind the police station is that the actual production over almost 10 years now, 9 years and a few months, has been about 7% above what we had projected with that, 0.5% reduction each year for 9 years. So there's no guarantee that that will happen with the Bristol project, but if anything, the technology that we're buying today is that much better than what we were able to put in the Middlebury police station 10 years ago.
What are the other wear items on them? Obviously, you have to set the panels, but what else deteriorates?
About the main thing is the inverters that convert the DC energy to AC to go out on the transmission lines. And they're warranted for 10 years, and we've put in a replacement fund in the 14th through 16th year. If anything fails before 10 years, they're replaced. But beyond that, we've made the assumption that they'll all fail in the sort of 14 to 18-year period and have to be replaced.
So
Apart from that, there aren't any, as you know, there aren't any.
Hello there. Just while there's a little break in the action, if the presenters could get closer to the microphone and camera, that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
There was no break. There was no break in the action. You just couldn't hear this.
Oops.
No, thank you for the reminder, Kathleen. I was supposed to ask everyone to come up, and I didn't do that, so thank you for coming up. Farhad, go ahead.
So I have a comment and I have a question. I do agree with Nick that we should have our council review this, even at this hour, we should do it. It's hard for me to go through that whole stack of documents and understand everything. The second thing is, I have a question for the 10% deposit. How much does it come to for this 15%?
What was the question?
It's a non-refundable deposit, right, that we have to,
Right. Well,
That's way,
but that's,
Maybe I can answer that.
yeah,
We've waived the 10%
for the
deposit
town?
for the town.
Okay.
and I've got, no matter what contract we're gonna do, council's gonna review a contract. I mean, that's given. We've also had 2 weeks to give it to council if we were concerned right now. We could have passed this thing on because we've had it for 2 weeks. But any contract we're gonna into is council's gonna review it and
And so that's a valid point, right?
so I think it's a valid point, but I don't think it's gonna be anything that's gonna prevent us from voting tonight.
Other comments, discussion? Hang on just a second, Howard, let me just make sure the board doesn't have.
I mean, I am very in favor of moving forward with this. I think we can wait forever for technology to be better, but after days of breathing smoke from wildfires thousands of miles away, I feel like the time to put our energy toward solving the climate crisis was 10 years ago, and barring 10 years ago, today's a great day.
Esther, did you want to come? Good.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Don't let me put words in your mouth.
No, it's interesting to hear all the perspectives. Thank you so much for providing all the information, and I'm also in full support.
Howard, did you want to add anything?
I just want to address one of the concerns about the 11th hour comment. So we spent about a year looking at all the options in terms of net metering for the town. And, there was one where we even looked into what it would take to have Acorn Energy construct an array for us, for the town, solely for our purpose, or to also share with the community, which it would be a major burden on town staff. It would be more profitable and more, there'd be greater savings, but it just didn't seem like the right fit for the town to actually be going through something like that. So with everything else we were considering, the Green Lantern, we looked into the digester. This was by far the best in terms of, one, the savings. And we don't know when the next opportunity will come up with an Acorn Energy project to be able to provide us with net metering. And given the fact that the units were selling out, we figured we got to get on this quickly to be able to at least be part of that. Otherwise, it could be years before we see something else like this. So when consideration to all the other options, how much better this was in terms of savings for the town, it seemed like the right choice. And so, yeah, I agree. It would have been nice for us to get on board a lot sooner. We could have spent a little bit more time and probably could have reached our 25% that we were after. But that just didn't happen that way. In terms of the obsolescence, I just think, well, one other point, in terms of Green Mountain Power, I think one of the reasons why they capped net metering at 500 kilowatts is because the cost of solar right now is high. As that comes down, they might consider increasing the cap to accommodate cheaper electricity. But it is one of the more expensive forms of electricity for them. And that's why it's capped like that. And in terms of obsolescence, you can't wait for the next best thing because there's always going to be something better. It's Moore's law, right? Everything doubles every 3 years. So I don't think you can live by that because otherwise you're just going to miss out. And in the meantime, we're missing out on how much savings that we could be getting from net metering. And this is only going to be, we're still going to have a lot of net metering capacity remaining if we ended up with 15%. So just trying to address some of the concerns there.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Howard. Is someone ready to make a motion?
Heather, before you move to that, we have a couple of
Oh,
raised hands.
thank
So,
Yep. I can't really,
looks
is that
like
Ross?
Ross and
yeah.
Victoria.
Okay, Ross, I'm gonna unmute you. Please go ahead. That didn't seem to work. Okay, Ross, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist.
Oh,
Yeah, easy.
Okay, go ahead, Ross.
You have him muted?
You're muted.
You can unmute your microphone. I'm not sure I can do it from here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I had a few comments. Some of them were already answered by folks there. One was, I wanted to mention that Dan's remarks about the cost of the bond being covered is a little off, just in that the savings from the electricity produced by the array, if the town purchases it, and being sold to Green Mountain Power, will actually more than cover it. The town will actually make money on this. So, that's an important point. And that's from the first year. The town will make money on this proposal. And it'll be taking a significant step in addressing the greenhouse gas and environmental emissions, which we should have been doing years ago. And unfortunately, the reason it's kind of a short time is, the Energy Committee came to the board years ago, a couple years ago now, with the idea of just buying and building our own solar array. We would save a lot more money, but there would be costs, upfront costs, a lot more work for the town. And so by doing it this way, we reduce the costs, we reduce the labor, but we're on someone else's time schedule, which makes it a little bit rushed. Thankfully, Acorn is being very generous in being willing to reserve up to at least 15% for the town should we go forward. So that helps provide time for the town to make a decision. My hope is that you will vote for this contingent upon the council approving the deal, and vote for up to 23% purchase, knowing that at least 15% is going to be held by Acorn for the town. And the reality is, no one's got a better idea on how we can address our climate impact currently and make money at the same time. So I think personally, this is a very rare, unique, and profitable opportunity for the town. We're already involved in long-term contracts, and down the road, after 25 years, the reality is all the infrastructure is going to be there. It probably won't be a big deal and very hard to simply take the old panels off, should we decide to, and along with the rest of the Bristol community solar owners, and simply replace those panels with upgraded panels of some kind, which probably will be much more efficient than what we're using now. My understanding is that the certificate of public good would allow that. It's good for as long as the facility is producing electricity. And that could be a lot more than 25 years. But thank you for listening and taking my comments.
Thank you, Ross. We have another hand up, right?
Yes. Just move Ross back to where he was. Victoria, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. You can choose to turn your camera on or not. Entirely up to you.
Hi,
But you'll
Victoria.
need to unmute your microphone.
If you can hear us, Victoria, make sure you unmute.
There. Hi there. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. In view of climate change, I think this is a really interesting, good project. My question is about the bonding And well, my first question, is that the only way to pay for this? And if it is, have you considered, if on a 25-year bond, is that how long it would be?
20 years. 20 years.
20-year bond, and what would the interest be on that? So we're, we're paying more than the, what is it, 300 and whatever, $20,000. There's interest on that, and is that factored in on whether we're going to make that money back?
The answer is yes. It is factored, the interest on that 20-year bond is factored into the calculations, and we do still make money even after the interest on the bond.
Okay, well, that's good. And how does this impact us year to year on taxes?
No impact on taxes.
Oh, because the payback starts immediately. It's not further down the road.
Correct. Kathleen can correct me if I'm wrong, but the shortest bond we can get is a 20-year bond, correct?
No, we can get any period of bond starting at 5 years, I think. And we can always do some analysis to determine what term makes the most sense while still realizing some savings. The 20-year bond was selected in this case because that was the only one that was the least increment that allowed us to show a savings in each year.
That was the difference. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Victoria. No other hands up on Zoom, right?
Not that I see. Check. No, board is clear.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to endorse the Energy Committee's proposal to purchase 460 units in the Acorn Energy Solar 3 array in Bristol, equivalent to 185 kilowatts of electricity at a total cost of $322,920. I further move that the question of bonding to finance this expense be put before the voters at a special town meeting to be warned for August 30th, 2021, with Australian ballot voting on August 31st.
Is there a second?
One second.
Thank you, Farhad. Any other discussion on the motion? Ready for a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the project, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
Okay. All right, so we have 5 and 6. I can count. 5 and 1. Okay, and 1 absent. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Howard.
I did have one follow-up question, because it wasn't clear. In our committee meeting, we talked about advocacy and whether or not it's appropriate for the Energy Committee, being a subcommittee of the town, to actually advocate publicly for this prior to the vote. And I don't know what we just didn't know.
Okay. Kathleen, can you comment on that at a later time?
Yes, I will.
Okay. You want to just wait to get back from vacation and?
No, I think advocacy is good. If this is something that obviously the select board is interested in, I just want to make sure that we have a coordinated effort going forward. So I'm happy to work with Howard on that, and Brian and Heather.
Yeah, so we should have some planning meetings prior to that special town meeting to make sure that we're providing the community with good information for that bond.
Howard is also interested in having an article in the Addison Independent very soon, so that people there'll build some support in the community and provide notice of the bond vote and how to get your absentee ballots and the like. So sooner rather than later.
Okay, if I can assist, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's move to 7A, approve the warning for the special town meeting in August to vote on the Ripton's financial plan for withdrawal from the Addison Central School District and the bond vote to finance the purchase of units in the Acorn Energy Co-op's Bristol project. There's two versions in our packet for consideration. What's changed, as already has been discussed a little bit,
You will do option one.
yes, we'll do option one. But one thing just to note that's changed since our prior meeting is the Ripton vote does have to be an Australian ballot vote versus a floor vote. But now that we're doing the bond, we're definitely doing Australian ballot.
But this
So,
motion is only for one, right?
yes, there is an updated, motion in the email, isn't there? Or is this one is good?
It's in the
It's in your packet.
agenda, note agenda.
It's also on the last meeting.
Yeah, I think this one is good.
The first one, right?
Yeah, the first one.
Yep.
Should I move?
Sure.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the warning for a special town meeting on August 30th and 31st, 2021 to consider Ripton's financial plan for withdrawal from the Addison Central School District and to consider a bond vote to finance the purchase of units in Acorn Energy Co-op's Bristol project.
Second.
Is that a second? Thank you, Nick. So we have motion by Farhad, second by Nick. Discussion. Do you need
I
to-
think your approval of the article before made our job a lot easier. The tough thing has been the whole school vote thing, so basically Susan and I will have to figure out, and I think we're gonna wanna work with Kathleen and Chris in terms of figuring out the meeting with the moderator and probably some sort of Zoom connection for the 30th. But yeah, it's good to have both of the questions on the same ballot. Early voting will start on August 11th, so that's coming right up. As confusing as it's been, my only concern is at this point is that the hope is that all towns that need to vote are pulling it together for the August 31st. And obviously I have no control over that and I don't know for sure, so just trying to fit into a way of not making any mistakes where we then have to do it again.
Well, thank you for doing your part to make sure that we fit in there right.
Yeah, we did an election year during COVID for presidential, and I'm thinking we can handle whatever comes up. Yeah.
We have faith.
Any other comments, questions? We're ready to vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the warning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're all in favor.
I have the actual warning here for you to sign tonight.
Okay.
And I can just start with Nick. I have 2 copies, and if you would sign both.
Okay.
And if I happen to not be here by the time you're all done signing, I want to stay through the next few things. But I do have a mailbox right outside the door for town clerk, just in case.
Yeah, you read the motion.
I didn't have anything to say.
Farhad read the motion, Nick seconded it. Yep, I'll go ahead.
Were you like Kathleen to proper notes?
I voted.
It's okay.
She missed a meeting. She's a little rusty at this.
Okay, so we're going to
Entertained.
move to item 7B, approve the declaration of intent to bond for the solar project. Obviously, this is now applicable with our approval of the item 6. And we need to approve a declaration of intent stating that the town will use the bond proceeds to reimburse itself for the expense associated with its investment in the Acorn Energy Solar 3 array. The declaration commits the town to complete such reimbursement within 18 months of either the date of the first expenditures of funds or the date that the project is placed in service, whichever is later. The declaration requires the town clerk's signature. Any questions?
I'll
Some-
move.
Okay, Go ahead.
I'll move to approve the declaration of intent for town's purchase of renewable energy units in the Acorn Energy Solar 3 array and authorize town clerk and Webster's signature.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved by Farhad, second by Lindsay. Discussion. Questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I think you can sign that paperwork now.
That's two of them.
Item 7C, approve the resolution warning for the bond vote for the solar project. We're being asked to approve a resolution certificate outlining its intention to bond for the town's investment in the solar project and certifying that the bond is acting within its authority under state statute. The resolution certificate requires the town clerk's signature and attestation that all actions by the board in regard to this matter, including execution or warning of all required documents, were undertaken in accordance with the law. Questions? Discussion. Motion?
I move to approve resolution certificate for the town's purchase of renewable energy units in Acorn Energy Solar 3 array and authorize town clerk and Webster's signature.
Thank you, Farhad. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're all in favor. Okay, that wraps up the solar and the bond. Or not the bonds, the voting special Australian. I keep saying the bond, but it wraps everything up. Okay, let's move on. All right. So item 8, following up on Jeremy and Liz Parker's request to cross town right of way with a proposed driveway to access the proposed Parker Homestead and Forest Farm off Washington Street Extension.
Good, thank you.
Hi, Jeremy. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
It's good to be in person.
Yes.
Good to have you in person.
Yeah. Thank you
I
for
had to
joining us.
rearrange my travel arrangements, but luckily it all worked out.
Good.
I
Well,
understand.
thank you.
Mr. Traveler.
We appreciate it.
It's better in person anyways, right?
It is.
Chris, would you promote Jen Murray to panelist or whatever you need to do so she can join us, please?
Jen, you're coming into the meeting. Just have to unmute, please.
Hey there.
Hi. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. Chris mentioned to me before the start of the meeting that you would be willing to give us an update on the DRB's decision from last night. Would you like to start off with that for us?
Sure thing, yeah. So since the last time you met, Jeremy and the fire chief have met about the plan for the driveway, and the fire chief's comments and the driveway got all incorporated into the plan, series of pull-offs and a dry hydrant and all the things that Dave Shaw needed to improve the driveway access. So that's going to allow him, in the event of a fire, it's going to allow him to be able to pull the truck in off Washington Avenue Extension, which he feels, safe about. That's relevant to your access in terms of improving the safety of that access. And given those improvements to the driveway and given the fact that they really haven't had many comments about the cabin at all, the DRB was able to approve the development in the Forest District last night, which was their charge under conditional use review. And their approval decision has a condition in it that if the select board denies any portion of the 1111 or access permit, either the work in the right-of-way permit that Bill has issued a draft of, or this access across the trail right-of-way, if the select board doesn't approve either one of those, then that will invalidate the DRB's decision. But they felt comfortable enough with the things that were in their court to proceed with an approval last night based on that condition.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. I'll just give a brief update because, how I started the meeting, that I was on the wrong subject. I think I was probably the hang-up vote on the last meeting because I was concerned we been consistent or weren't going to be consistent with previous select board decisions on that reclassification of the road from class 4 to trail that the parkers are requesting that they cross for their driveway access. I had a conversation with Fred. Thank you, Fred. Kurt put some minutes or some video. He took the old style video of old select board and put them in digitized form. I reviewed the minutes a little more carefully. I looked at the town maps. And my final decision on the subject is that I will support the parker's request to cross the road. I think the Reynolds decision in 2000 was a different situation and decision where the request was to upgrade the class 4 road so that he could access his property, which I think is a different situation than this request, which is a cross of the road and not an upgrade of the trail. So I think I've resolved my concerns from the last meeting about the select board being consistent. I think the select board's decision is, our only decision is to decide on using that access. I will say that I do still have some concerns about the safety, but not sure, given that Fire Chief Shaw's concerns have been addressed. DPW has determined that the sight lines are there. I do still think there's some dangerous aspects of that corner, but I think I'm gonna, my vote will be to let the project proceed. And so I'll open it up for other discussion from the rest of the board. Anything you want to add or ask or talk about?
I was comfortable last time trusting our professionals as they looked at it. The issues that were brought up by Chief Shaw were something for the DRB to put into their court. They addressed it. And so I see nothing that makes me want to go against what I made as the motion last time. So I'd be willing to make the same motion again.
Good. So there was an update. Jen provided an update to the motion that was in the email that came this afternoon. Is that what's in the packet also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very minor changes.
Okay.
I have a comment. You know, most of my concern was about safety, because I think ironically enough, from where I live in the summertime, the only part of the town I can see is that corner. I live up on a rock and I see that corner. So, and I pass by all the time. So safety is a big concern to me, and it's a concern of a lot of people. I think what we need to do is continue the conversation after we vote tonight. We need to continue the conversation about that corner. And the thing that makes it particularly unsafe is people walking and people on bicycles, and they have the right of way to be there. But we need to look at other opportunities to get them from the TAM up maybe across the back of the properties up to Ellen Lane or on Happy Valley Road, something to help people get around that. And so we can't stop the conversation here. Maybe it's reduction of speed limits, maybe keep continuing the 25, but the way the speed limits are now, that has no impact on people, the way people are driving out there. But hopefully we as a community and we as a select board will continue the conversation of trying to make that corner for safer. We know plenty of people who've gone off the road there. Now when they go off the road, they're going to go into the driveway. They're going to be heading down to your house. So maybe it's like a strip to help them and it'll be safer. But I'd like to continue the conversation.
I think that's a great point, Dan, and I think it's something I'll take a look at what the infrastructure committee's commitments are and what staff commitments are, but something that might be interesting. And I noticed in the correspondence, Kathleen's correspondence list, there was an opportunity to submit, there was funding for 2 or 3 projects. I don't know that that's necessarily 2 or 3 Middlebury projects to the regional planning. Maybe not this year, but at some point, is there an opportunity to take advantage of some of that grant money to look at safety at that particular corner and what we might be able to do to make some improvements and make it a little safer? And it would be great to know that the Parkers and the other residents in the area would be on board with, whatever we could figure out to do to improve the safety at that corner.
Ready.
Ready? Anyone else have comments?
We do have hand up.
Oh, Laura.
Oh, and also on the screen.
All right, you can take off first.
Yep, so, I'm sorry, I have a hard time reading
Leon.
that one here. Leon, okay.
You want to take Leon first?
Laura, did you have comments?
She can go first.
Okay, let's let Leon in and then.
Okay, Leon, I'm going to move you into the meeting. If you would unmute your microphone and speak, please.
Hey, and you can hear me now?
Hear you.
Okay. So I'm kind of dismayed the way that just started there, Heather. I had some notes prepared and you kind of threw me for a loop, but let me start with this. I'm sure folks are wondering, well, who is this fly in the ointment? Well, in my 13 years residence in Middlebury, I've followed a lot of town business. I've read the minutes, the news, I've voted, but this is the first time I've ever brought my concerns about a project directly to the select board. I started with some concerns about safety, but as I dug into this and found some other issues, particularly the precedent that was set, and I'll get back to that in a second, I felt it really important that I bring these issues to the board. Let me state, first of all, that a longtime resident was denied the right-of-way for a smaller project after almost a year, particularly 9 months of consideration by the select board. The Parker proposal's been on the table for a little while, but it's been a few months, not that long. And Mr. Parker is a relative newcomer to town who purchased the property without researching those right-of-ways. Now he's concerned about his access, and he's coming to the same corner that in minutes from 99 and 2000, it particularly stated that the northern access was not advisable due to safety concerns. And the fact that, there was concern about the character for the forest district. So yes, Mr. Reynolds did ask for something slightly different, but the right-of-way was considered from both north and south. And at the time, it was a road. It wasn't even the trail right-of-way that it was now. And the town took a very calculated decision to downgrade that road to a trail with the specifics, again, from the 99-2000 of prohibiting and limiting general motor vehicle traffic on that road. Specifically so I do think, although it is different, it is still the same precedent. And in order to overturn a precedent, you need compelling evidence to the contrary, that the conditions have changed. And I don't think anybody can say that in 20 years, safety has gotten any better on that corner. And I also note that in the 20 years, the abutting property owners, particularly the Malcolms and the Reeves, who were supportive of the town in 99 and 2000 with its actions, are opposed to access to the right-of-way now. So you're actually gone the opposite direction, but the board now, it seems, is intent on undoing the precedent. So it brings me also to another issue. In my opinion, I wouldn't read too much into the DRB's approval of the project. My take from monitoring the meetings thus far has been that this is a hot potato that the DRB didn't want to really deal with. And they wanted to hand it through a cleverly crafted motion to the select board in such a way that basically if somebody had to say no, it was going to be you guys. So now you've been tasked to grab the bull by the horns, and I don't envy you because either way, you're going to, in a way, upset someone. But I think it's the least upsetting to turn down the proposal of Mr. Parker with the proviso that you could revisit it in the future, 3 months or 6 months, if his established right of way, which Mr. Reynolds did not even have to explore, was deemed not usable. But that hasn't even been explored and established right away. Instead, in a matter of few months, a new property owner has proposed a massive project, 5 employees, 3 separate septic pump systems. Looks like a significant footprint coming out onto that corner when 20 years ago, it was deemed unsafe for residential, a small parcel even. So, lastly, this brings me to the equity issue. And this is often why I don't get involved in a lot of town affairs. And the reason why is because there is a lack of equity in how these proposals and projects are dealt with by the town. The town of Middlebury seems to have the reputation, even prior to my 13 years of residence, of favoring the affluent gentry. Those who come with large engineering proposals from big firms that are connected to folks that then get what they want. When local folks like John Reynolds, who had lived in this area for decades, brings a proposal who doesn't have the deep pockets, is shot down and specific actions of the town are taken. The way I look at it in this meeting, if you approve it this evening, you prove my point about the landed gentry and the direction that Middlebury has gone in. And if you don't, either way, you prove my point. And I think that it's incumbent upon the board to consider what I sent earlier in an email, which was that you can punt this down the road with the provision that it be revisited should Mr. Parker fail to secure access through his existing right-of-way. What is the rush to dump traffic onto that corner? The select board will own every near miss, every accident, hopefully not fatal, that occurs on that corner when you have trucks and other things introduced into that corner. Again, I agree with Nancy. It is an issue that needs to be dealt with regardless of whether the Parker's proposal is approved. But why approve something when there's been no traffic study on the corner, there's been no deliberation, there's been no consideration, even close to the 9 months or year that it took the town to downgrade the road in the first place. So again, I'll rest there. And like I said, I'll be satisfied with whatever the board decides because I feel it will prove my point either way. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. I appreciate you being here and your. So do we have other hands up there, Chris?
Not on Zoom.
Okay, Laura, if you would just come up here closer to the mic and the cameras, please.
Hi, Jeremy. So I'm a resident of Washington Street Extension, and I'm behind in terms of catching up with this. But I also wear the hat of the Walk By Council of Addison County, and we can tell you that that corner is definitely one we watch, and it is in the pathway of the triangle bike loop that we are advocating for as the major artery that connect people from Middlebury to Bristol. So we anticipate more bike traffic, in that path. And we are, like Dan, and others, really concerned, regardless of this decision tonight, that Bushy's Corner, as we call it, is improved for safety, or, we look at other bypass paths, for that. So I just wanted the board to know that, like that we anticipate more cycling activity in that corridor in the coming years. And please consider that.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Fred?
Fred Dunning. I was a town planner here for 32 years, and I followed things, although I steel myself to try to let the current planners and folks address these things. It occurred to me that, well, first, I would just say that my recollection of the conversations with John Reynolds at the time differs some from what you just heard. Really, he was actively trying to buy property and sell it, as he has done in a number of other properties around, and he was mostly engaged in trying to get the best price he could for it. And the town was trying to negotiate to not have housing in there, and obviously an access would make the property more valuable. So there were some other things going on, to be honest about this at the time. None of that has anything to do with the safety. It was always been a concern there. At a later time, I remember writing a bike and ped plan that was mostly aimed at getting funding for the pedestrian bridge, the Pelt Mill Bridge, but we had to write a bike and ped plan to do this at the time in that era. And in that, we threw in a few ideas, such as a bypass, pedestrian bypass from Painter Hills, basically to the north and west, not going up over the hill, but around to Washington Street Extension, kind of where the TAM trailhead is now, as an idea. I would just also observe that in my reading of the minutes of this, I was unable to really see any clear reference to comments by the police chief. And in the many years I served here, his expertise and wisdom about safety was something I greatly valued. I haven't seen that. Maybe you heard it. And the other thing I would observe, just from my experience, is that for a project of this sort, and it's ambitious, I commend you for that, there's going to be significant construction impact. The construction impact of that road and all the dump trucks backing in, building that road is probably going to be more impact than the use itself. I don't know. I haven't read anything about that. And I did note that the property does extend down several hundred feet towards the cemetery, enough so that there might be site visits for an alternative location if this doesn't all work out for whatever reasons. I don't know, but what it could not be another access down that would be less disruptive. But anyway, those are just some thoughts and ideas I have. I don't envy you in your deliberations. And congratulations on your efforts and investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Heather, we have a hand up from Michael Reeves in the Zoom audience.
Okay.
Michael, I'm going to move you into the meeting. If you would unmute your microphone, please.
Hi, thank you. That was a bit of a awkward process there. I thought I got disconnected for a second. I share a lot of the concerns that Mr. Smith had articulated and was going to just let it sit. But as I expressed earlier in an email to one of the members of the select board, I'm sitting on my porch today watching a, probably 6-year-old try to navigate this corner on their little tiny bike, and a car coming up behind them from town. And the car needing to cross the yellow line to get enough space for this child to navigate the corner. There may be 390 feet of sight distance from this proposed driveway in each direction, but immediately when you cross this curve in either direction, you're in a blind spot. And so this car, as it crossed the yellow line, and as the fire chief said his trucks would have to do, you're out of sight to anybody coming from what I would call the east from Happy Valley Road and up that way. It's dangerous. And one thing that I haven't heard in all of the discussions about this is why not the entrance on Painter Hills? It's there. It's safer. Yes, it goes through a neighborhood which I know the neighbors down there don't want it any more than I would like it up on the corner of this hill. But it's not people going 35 or on a blind corner. So I would hope that this safety issue is taken into consideration as part of the decision that's made here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Michael. Any other hands up?
No.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I am. And, well, I've heard the comments, and appreciate them and respect them. And I've looked at this site. I also trust our professionals that this is appropriate. And so as a person who is not a member of the landed gentry, I'm going to make the motion to approve the request by Jeremy and Liz Parker to use a portion of the town right-of-way and trail LT Lima Tango 1, formerly known as Meanswood Road, TH Tango Hotel number 12, where the trail intersects with Washington Street Extension as a driveway access, with the language and conditions suggested by town council. I further move that the motions in entirety be included in the written public record for this meeting.
Is there a second? Thank you, Esther.
Heather, I don't know if you're still interested in taking comments from public, but we do have one hand up on Zoom.
Okay. One more?
Sure.
Okay. Mika Barker Hart, I'm going to move you into the meeting. If you would turn on your microphone, please.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Point out that the access to Painter Hills Road from Washington Street Extension is also extremely dangerous for pedestrians. There is not a lot of traffic, accidents that happen there, but for pedestrians, I walk there every day, multiple times a day. It is extremely dangerous. The corner where the cars come going towards town on Washington Street Extension is blind. And I have almost been hit by a car walking my dogs more times than I can count. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Great, thank you, we appreciate it. I would concur, having driven that recently, that entire section from before Bushy Corner all the way down past the Painter Hill development entrance is not necessarily ideal.
There's no perfect answer and solution to this, right?
What did you say? What did you say?
He said, go
I didn't
ahead.
say anything to you.
Just because you're sitting on Brian's, you don't have to
There
drink.
is no perfect solution to this.
No, and it's not a road to be riding your bike on or walking on. Just, there's no shoulders, it's not designed to do that.
In my opinion, if the safety parameters have been met, Chief Shah signed off on it, so I'm on board.
Jen, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I'm sorry to tie you up a little bit longer, but didn't I read somewhere that Chief Hanley had either been out there or had commented on it as well, either as part of the DRB minutes or something? Am I remembering incorrectly?
Chief Hanley did attend the site visit. But at that time he was concerned about safety. I haven't really touched base with him since then. But I know that Bill, touched base with him and Chief Shaw when he did his draft work in the right-of-way permit.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Okay, other comments from the board?
I'm gonna be a no, just let you know. And I just want to emphasize, because a lot of people were saying a lot of things, and to me, it's just not a safe place. I'd be willing to revisit it sometime down the line. You know, but a lot of things were said that are not part of my calculus. It's just, you know, it's a very unsafe spot in town. And we have had numerous people coming to us in the past few months with real concerns about speeding and pedestrian safety and biker safety. And I would like to see some of those, I would like to see us do some work to make that area safer before we make it more complicated. And I am thinking about the families that use that area to commute. And I know at least one family with small children that commutes that stretch of road daily. And I do worry about, you know, kids on bikes. And, you know, I drive a pretty small car, and I came out and looked at it, and I can say I don't feel like I can see well enough, and that means other people won't be able to see well enough either. Maybe if you're in a big truck, it's better, but for somebody in a small car, it's not great. But I just wanted to put it out there because things were said that I don't necessarily agree with. It's just a safety thing, and I'd like to see some work done before we, you know, before we complicate an already complicated spot in town. And I respect everybody else's opinion otherwise, because, you know, the professionals have looked at it. It did pass muster. I understand that. You know, I just can't sign off on something that I feel like will make pedestrians and kids on bikes less safe.
Okay. Other comments? Are we ready to vote? Ready to vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And so is that 5?
1, 2, 3, 4.
5. And opposed? Yep. 1 opposed and 1 absent. 1 absent. So the motion carries with 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 absent. So the select board is granted permission for you to cross that trail.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you for being here.
thank you. Welcome up the opportunity to have a seat at the table with future discussions as to the safety of Washington Street extension. My background is a roadway designer and familiar with these challenges, and as the property owner there, we certainly welcome the opportunity to do anything we can to provide sidewalk, anything else along our frontage that could help in that process.
Well, I think about it, in getting back to the project, I'm impressed with the project. And I think that's been seen in many examples. So what we look forward to seeing I think is a good project for the town. Thank you. And so we can't lose sight of that. This is a good project for the town. So we appreciate you putting effort forward.
It's a beautiful piece of land, and we certainly want to improve it. And being that it's tied to other protected lands, that's you know, a very important piece of the puzzle for us.
Yeah, and it's part of the core of the town without sprawling things out. So I think that really is a credit to the effort. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I know you've got some top-notch design professionals, you know, from the area and done good things. So I look forward to seeing a good project.
Thank you very much.
And so as you become a new member of our community, we are always looking for people to volunteer on our many boards. I'll just put that little plug. I'll just put that little plug in there.
I've got a long time in public service on the staff side of things, so I'll consider.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
And welcome.
All right, Karen, if you would please come up, and since you're presenting, if you wouldn't mind joining us over here in one of the mealy chairs at the table.
Okay, all right. Poor Karen's been sitting there for hours waiting for this opportunity.
And thank you for your patience.
Absolutely.
As much as I've tried to move things along, it's been a lot of deliberative discussion.
It's good discussion. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to
it's
see
so
you.
great to see people in person. I did get to see Nick recently.
Yeah.
But other than that,
It's really nice to see everybody.
And you still came back.
I know, right? So Kickstart, I wanted to give you guys an update as to where things stand. Nick's been keeping you updated as we've gone. So we started out with receiving funding from the town up to $50,000. And then we assembled a panel of folks that we felt was representative of the community. It really had a good mix of perspectives, people that were community leaders and community members and business owners, economic development professionals. We had students from the college, which was a great voice to have on the panel. And so we pulled this panel together and we started pulling the program together. And then we received an offer of a match to the town's funds from Table 21, which was incredibly gracious and wonderful. And then we also received two $10,000 donations from the Rotary Club of Middlebury and the Solano Donor Fund, which was an anonymous donation. And it just showed up in the mail one day. I don't get those, so I'm glad I signed up for this. It was really great.
Money brings money.
Well, yes, and I also think it was just, people, this really resonated with people. This program and this, what we were doing, and the fact that we were being really proactive and we were really seeing a problem that we wanted to solve. I think that was something that really resonated, and it garnered a lot of support. So we advertised it, we used $10,000 to advertise it widely, regionally, and then we started fielding letters of interest, and we received 40, and really varied, interesting, creative ideas, many local, but also a lot from not here, around Vermont, but also out of state. So it was really cool to see the ideas that were coming through. The panel took good consideration in the letters of interest. We really used the criteria that we had developed, but also just the documents that we had at our disposal with the Future of Retail study and the Buxton Leakage report, and we really tried to utilize all of the things that we had at our disposal to kind of get a sense of like, okay, what's the community need, and also how sustainable is this business going to be? What's it going to add, to the community, and is it going to be successful? Those were really the key elements that we focused on. And so from there, we invited 12 of those businesses to submit a full business plan that included financial projections and really just soup to nuts, like deep dive. We gave them resources through the Small Business Development Center, and also the Center for Women in Enterprise offered to work with folks as well. So we divvied them up, and they had access to a lot of resources in that way, and help with their business plans and just people to bounce ideas off of. We did an interview with each one of them, and really great conversation that came out of that. And then we had a marathon meeting of in person, which was wonderful, to really dive into the criteria that we were using, how the businesses measured up to that criteria, as well as how they measured up to one another, and to these two central ideas of wanting to meet a community need and wanting to set people up for success. And then we chose 6 businesses. And so the 6 businesses that we chose, we had 4 that were awarded a $20,000 grant, plus the business supports that had been donated by local businesses and organizations, things like graphic design, marketing, printing, even some retrofitting, things like that, business services that had been donated. And then we had 2 businesses / organizations that we awarded a $15,000 grant to. So we were able to do 6, which is really incredible. And we're so excited to see these businesses come into town and start filling up these storefronts and getting people down here. So I tried to make that really quick because I know you guys are running behind, but I would love to take your questions and see what you're curious about.
So yeah, these 6 plus 3 more are coming in town, and they were part of the application, right? So that's great. So
yes.
We pretty much can take credit on 9. And I just want to remind you, 2 years ago, we were looking at Wilmington.
Yeah.
Their plan, how they did it, and we were looking at, can we do it, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's really exciting.
I say congratulations.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thanks.
Having been a part of this, I can't I have to give a lot of credit to what Karen's done. And I'll even say that publicly.
I appreciate that.
No, I came into what Karen has done through this pandemic and how she responded when response was needed, she was there. And then when she brought this idea of Wilmington and looked at it, it's like, okay, we've tried various things and we haven't had the success we needed, so let's give it a shot. You know, the old Franklin Roosevelt line of, you know, we'll try something and if we don't succeed, then we'll admit failure, we'll try again. Well, we tried something new and this was not a failure. This was an absolute success, I think, of high magnitude. I mean, when I look at just the interest that came in, it was 41, 42?
40.
I mean, it was really quite awe-inspiring and it was fascinating to look at what the various things were. I think we all had our personal preferences as to what we wanted, but things ultimately shook out really quite well. And we had such a great group of people. I mean, I think of, you know, we had financial people who put them through the financial mill. We had people who were involved in restaurants who hit them with the tough love reality. And so at the end here, we have what we believe are 6 groups that are going to succeed. And it's a really good model for the future. We shouldn't stop. We should keep our momentum going. This is an anchor to draw people down. And it's an anchor now to build more accommodations and keep the motion going, because it's the great way to come out of this, not just pandemic, but the construction era for the rebirth of the town core, and it's going to be good. And we also were very cognizant of being able to address the total social economics of the town, so that downtown isn't perceived as either elitist or what have you. It's a place where people will come and be a part of the community, because it's the core. It's how we interact publicly at the greatest level. So this was a fantastic opportunity. I was glad to be a part of it, and really felt like a minor part in many respects compared to everybody else who was on there. So congratulations on the effort, and let's keep this going. And we're looking forward to patronizing and seeing these businesses becoming some really good ones.
I want to make comments about her too.
Oh, boy.
They're not good, so. A few months ago, I was approached to sit on a new board called Table 21. And it was, we've only been in existence for maybe 5 months. And it was based on a very generous donor, anonymous donor, who ultimately gave us $650,000. The first $300,000 was to give to restaurants and small farms in Middlebury to help them through the pandemic. And so we just had money. She had energy and ideas. And we worked with her significantly. And I know we took up a lot of her time and how to dole out the money. And you've read about it in the paper, and it was pretty exciting. But, and then when we got talking to her about Kickstart, and this anonymous donor gave us another $350,000. So we put some in there. And then Karen came up with another idea that she hasn't mentioned, and it's a rolling grant program. And the rolling grant program, you describe the grant program, and I'll tell you, and I can tell you how it's funded.
Sure. So we have long, this pandemic really sort of shone a light a little bit on, the fact that we have needs here and not the funding for these smaller things. So things like a new awning, right? For some of these businesses, when you look at the downtown, it's a deferred thing, right? So they don't have the money for a new awning, and so they push it down the line, and enough folks doing something like that end up creating a look in the town. And so this has been something that's been on sort of my wish list for a very long time, and BMP just didn't have the funds to ever be able to create a rolling grant type of program. But we're sort of calling it like a beautification grant program for facades. It would be for painting, for awnings, for window boxes, for things that are really forward facing, that really kind of make our town feel fresh. And like we really care about it, and that it's a community that we're investing in. So I pitched that idea to Dan and the rest of the Table of 21 folks to just see what they thought about something like that. It's something that I know other communities have in their back pocket, and it was something that I thought would work really well for right now in Middlebury, and so far it has.
Right.
It's been great.
And she's prodding people to apply, because we do have money, and and trying to give this money away into the wishes of this wonderful person. And Karen has been fabulous. We talk quite frequently about these, and it's an exciting program, and so a lot of things that people are going to see and experience are because of her programs. And you're certainly working more hours than you're getting paid for, so thank you.
As are all of you. But yeah, so I just wanted to address to a couple of Nick's comments, and give credit to this panel. They really worked so hard, and I also want to just sort of say something special about the students from the college that we had. They came in and really had a perspective and a voice that I thought was just wonderful to hear from. But one of the things that I was really pleasantly surprised about is that they came in really focused on the needs of the community, not just their own needs. And they took it really seriously, and I was just so happy to have them as part of this. So the panel was really wonderful. Everyone on it worked really hard and had the best interest of the town at heart. So that was really awesome, and it was really fun to be part of. The other things that I wanted to mention is in terms of the future, I think that we learned a lot doing this, and one of the biggest lessons I think is just that this was always intended to be a spark, right? Like a spark to revitalize. It doesn't necessarily mean that the future is that we're paying businesses to come to Middlebury, but we now know that, these business supports are really valuable, setting these businesses up for success, and also having the opportunity to kind of help businesses see if they're the right fit before they come. And so this, increased relationships with the landlords and having an opportunity to be part of those discussions, knowing what we know, I think is really valuable going forward when we do have empty storefronts, which hopefully we won't very often. But when we do, rather than just have a business show up that nobody knew and they're not coming in really knowing their community either, I think we can definitely develop something down the road that will help these businesses be successful in a way that we haven't ever been able to do before. So I think that's what I'm taking out of this more than anything else.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you very much.
Your work is fabulous.
I can go home now.
Yes.
I'm actually going on vacation.
Yay!
Yay!
Travel safe,
Thank you.
go someplace fun.
All right. So consideration of the Bird Scooters request for a license agreement for a pilot project for renting e-scooters downtown, item 10. Bird Rides Incorporated is asking the board to consider entering into an operating agreement with the company in relation to its proposal to implement an electric scooter sharing system in Middlebury. We had a cover letter in our packet. There's also an operating agreement, I believe, in the packet. And in meeting with Brian and Kathleen prior to this planning meeting, I had a bunch of questions, and I also was concerned that Public Health and Safety Committee had not, even though they had discussed it, did not make a recommendation for or against. And it's been the last few years kind of our policy that we get a recommendation from our committees prior to making a decision. I also, to echo some of what Nick said about the solar arrangement, would like to have council review this. I feel the request for fall is a little too fast. Too ambitious. Maybe we'd be ready for a pilot project maybe in the spring. More time. The other thing in talking, I think, with Dan, I thought I had an additional idea that maybe we ask the Downtown Improvement District to also make a recommendation or comment also on the proposal and get a sense from the downtown business members in that committee what their thoughts are. I know Kathleen, I believe, Vinciers has requested that we forward our comments and questions to her so she can compile them to Tom to present to the committee. And I do have some questions I think there was, I'll go back and reread the operating agreement, but there was something in the operating agreement about the, holding the town accountable or not accountable, and the lawsuit aspect that I had wanted council to review before we agreed to. In addition to that, and maybe the Public Health and Safety Committee has already gotten information, but I don't really understand how the program works. I don't, one thing I could imagine is, so somebody picks up a scooter somewhere, right? So I've never done this. I've never seen it. I don't know how it works, but somebody picks up a scooter somewhere, they pay for it, right? They get some kind of training, they can ride it down the street. They decide to stop and go in a store. They leave the scooter outside the store.
Somebody else can pick it up.
Somebody else can pick it up.
And they don't have any training and they haven't paid for it, right?
Well,
No, you
say they
can't
have-
pick it up until you
gotta have
you
it.
have to like register.
So in order for it to go, you have to register it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that helps me out a
Is it
little
like the
bit.
e-bikes up in Burlington, that you swipe a card and you
I
grab
think
the license?
it's
Similar.
concept, yeah.
So I had questions about, what prevents a 10-year-old from hopping on that scooter and going up down the road or the sidewalk or whatever. But it seems like you then have to put in some kind of card to activate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You do it
basically
with your
an
phone.
iPhone or a
Okay.
smartphone.
Okay. So I guess the ultimate conversation is, so the item is on the agenda, so we know it exists, so it's out here. That Kathleen would like comments from us to bring to public health and safety. And that obviously we'll make a decision about it at some future meeting.
Heather, I just wanted you to be aware, before you move on the topic, we have a question in the Zoom audience from Michael Reeves, and also Jeremy Lynch, who's with Bird Rides Inc., is also on the call. If the board has any specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Does the board have anything they want to add or talk about at this point, or would you like to hear what Michael has to say? Well, Michael, you want to bring him in?
Sure. Michael, I'm moving you back into the meeting.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to me again. I have some concerns about bringing e-scooters into Middlebury. First of all, I don't think people really understand what this vehicle is. I had posted in Front Porch Forum over the weekend just, that I have some concerns, and people have come to this meeting tonight and talk about it, and some of the feedback that I got, I think people really don't understand what this is all about. I think I have several concerns. First of all, I don't see this fitting in the character of Middlebury. See e-scooters zipping in and out of traffic. I know that there are rules about how these vehicles are supposed to be operated, but I've been in communities where these scooters have been, and people are on the sidewalks, people are not wearing helmets, people are driving them when they're under the influence. There are a lot of risks to these vehicles being in town. I know that I was at the Health and Safety Committee meeting previously, and I heard Mr. Lynch talk about some upgrades that they've made to their system, including one of my major concerns was, you can just stop using it and leave it on a street corner, and so clutter was a concern that I had as well. What they call, I think they call geofencing, would that be available to keep these scooters off the sidewalks? Those are my areas of concern. The other thing that I would hope that the select board would do would be to, check in with Montpelier, who had these, and it wasn't universally positive. I read a Vermont Digger article earlier that said that there were some, there were pros and cons to this. So I would hope that the select board would do some research into other communities, especially communities in Vermont, because the communities that I've seen these scooters in are cities, larger, Boston, Washington, D.C., Nashville, and seeing them become a hazard and become a nuisance. So I'd like to see those things get addressed before this gets considered to move forward. I hope that the Select Board would do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate your comments. To be continued, I think. Laura, can you come up, please? Before you start, I would just say that I'm probably one of those people that Michael just talked about, not understanding how it all works. So.
Right, so that's one thing I was going to say. So I was at the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting, which Michael also attended and Jeremy presented at, and I recommend that the board get a presentation. It'll give you a better sense, and I also recommend that we have a demo event, which happened in 2019 when we were approached by Line. And I had the opportunity to try, and they were going to bring both e-bikes and e-scooters, and you could have the option of either. And I tried an e-scooter, and it was actually fun, but I noticed with everybody that went on one is big smile, because it's very efficient. E-scooters are going to come. They may not come like this way, but they're going to come. And the town of Middlebury is going to need to plan for them anyway. We're going to have to plan for this anyway. We're going to have a full spectrum of e-cycles, e-bikes, e-scooters, e-vehicles, and we have to plan for that. We have to teach people how to navigate our roads together with these vehicles. So you have a company now, that has experience with these e-bikes. Maybe they can, e-scooters, and maybe they can host a demo event for you and a presentation. It could be a public, event, so we could be better informed about it. That's my recommendation. The Walk Bike Council of Addison County, on which I also serve, definitely encourages alternatives to car use. And we're hearing concerns about speeding motorists. You're talking, everybody, even pedestrians are jaywalking across the street. We all have to pay attention, and what you want to do is just not to limit the use of these vehicles, but to try to create structures and policy that provides for safe use for all users.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate your comments.
Jeremy has his hand up.
Okay, and Fred does too. Why don't we let Jeremy come in, and then we'll go back to Fred.
Okay, Mr. Lynch, I'm going to move you into the meeting. If you'll unmute, please.
Great, thanks everybody. I appreciate. Can you hear me? Check, check.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Fabulous. So, Mr. Reeves brings up some really great points. And again, this is one of the things that in the course of 2021, we've kind of changed our modus operandi in like Nashville and in Washington and those places where you're talking 4-figure digits of scooters on the streets. What I would talk to folks about before and the chief were, basically like 50 to 75 scooters. So, and those kind of numbers, we really don't, and since we've kind of launched this program in 2021, where we've launched with that small number of scooters, we've launched over 110 cities this year so far with that number. And kind of honestly trying to figure out like that small number, and that really only equates to like Oswego, New York, and Olean we've launched in the last month. Basically 30 to 35 to 40 scooters in any given day at the max being out on the street. So we've kind of avoided the issues of that massive clutter. And I agree, Mr. Reeves is right. That is a massive number of scooters in Nashville and those places. It just, you kind of have to re-envision what that would look like in a much smaller number. And that's kind of how we've looked at it. And for us, it's, the no riding on sidewalks and the safety aspect is paramount to us, and being in the geofencing zones, being able to create that area so it's a much smaller area of ridership as opposed to expanding to the entire community. So avoiding those areas where we know there are going to be problems and really only allowing access riders, allowing access to riders in those small areas of town where, we know it's going to be utilized to its fullest. And that's really all we're looking for. It's just allowing community members to use the vehicles, as they see fit in their everyday life to get around without necessarily have to use a car. And really, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you being here tonight. I think the wanting to have some kind of, scooters in town by fall of this year is going to be hard to do, and us to have a chance to do our due diligence and put the things in place that we need to put in place. So I think a better goal would be to maybe shoot for spring and give us some time to do our work on this project for you.
Sure, and I don't disagree. And I think the references, again, that Ms. Reeves had asked about, I'd be happy to provide some of those that have used similar in size and scope, so you really get an idea of like what their experience has been. Will be very helpful to you. So I'm absolutely a proponent of that as well.
Okay.
Jeremy, when you launched them in Oswego, first of all, to put snow tires on them. Well, it seems like the spring actually becomes the logical time to do it because it's you're entering into a period of drier, more stable weather that's conducive to these units and allows them to get a learning curve to happen rather than putting them out in the fall and suddenly we're having people hitting them with ice storms and snowstorms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the seasonal nature of it. So, where in your environment, Oswego, Ole, and all those, even those places, it's really like a 6-month program really is what we look at. We don't look at it as a full year. So again, we it's pulled off because of weather. And we're the gravy is Oswego right now because of the marina and things like that. And the fleet manager, the local fleet manager we hired that's kind of getting a good percentage of that ride revenue, and they're actually doing extremely well right now. They realize that it's going to end up, kind of drying up in October, and they come back out in March and April, things like that.
I mean, you're always going to have those people. I've seen these things used in numerous places around the country, and you're always going to get those who say, well, there's these dangers to it, and there are those who are reckless in the same way that we just talked about an intersection where the real problem is not the intersection, it's the people that drive on it and don't do diligence and have situational awareness. But I would say the vast majority of people I've seen using these things do them with quite respectfully and use them as a tool with a degree of caution because quite simply they don't want to get hurt. So I would say we go through a review process, but I would envision that this is a tool that's going to help us in the future and one that we don't want to just sit there and look at negatives and write off, and that we do our due diligence and figure out how to make it. One of the things we do have is that we have a pretty good bicycle ordinance that was developed, and so we already have some of that aspect in place right now that will help with the management of these units. So appreciate you bringing the idea forward, and I think in right time and with right review, we can make these work quite well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that being able to present to everyone and give everyone a full Q&A, at another time about having everyone's questions answered and how the whole system would operate, I think would be obviously informative to the board or the council as well. So I'd be happy to do that at any time at their convenience.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you being here and for the information.
Thank you very much.
So I'm really behind. So if you could be as brief as you can.
I was involved with the discussion of this with Lime 2018, 2019 with Laura, and Steve Meyer, and others, and actually developed some of the draft ordinance amendments that Tom only advanced to you. So whether this happens with Bird or Lime, or whether individuals ride in the streets, we created the ordinances of the town. The other thing was the whole policy of use of the public right-of-way by a commercial entity, and what happens if, public parking spaces become used or these become a problem for merchants. How does the town just deal with this? It's a complaint matter. We don't want to have a burden on the police department to clean up police bikes and so forth. So the whole relationship with the fleet manager and so forth is just from the inside experience of working with the town and handling complaints for a period of my life is something that needs to get worked out. It shouldn't just be left to a paragraph. You know, there needs to be more planning of where would these be stationed and what would happen in the event there's, how responsive is the fleet manager to picking them up, cleaning up things, so you don't get the complaints in the merchants. You want to keep the downtown complaint-free and happy.
So having a good system for, I just wanted to make
The
some
fleet
notes.
manager, the local person who picks them up, charges them, and
So how does the complaint process work?
Which is part of the presentation that Jeremy.
yeah,
Yeah, they have a 24-hour hotline.
that's something that he will
He will address.
present, and it's
Okay.
important.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on here because I'm way behind. So let's go to number 11, approval of the loan agreement and general obligation bond and resolution and certificate for the Washington Street and Court Square Waterline project. Does anyone need review?
No.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the loan agreement, general obligation bond and resolution and certificate for the Vermont State Revolving Loan Fund, the fund loan in the amount of $1,791,700 for the Washington Street Court Square Waterline project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions?
Nope.
Lindsay's answering for all of us.
I was just saying, were you a consent agenda for this?
I'm in favor of.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 12, appointment of an interim town assessor as town assessor per town charter 24 VSA 127-704. Is that an I or an L? Anyway.
We got it.
Any questions? Anything you want to review? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to accept the Board of Ministers' recommendation and appoint interim town assessor Allison Joseph to the office of the town assessor.
Is there a second? Thank you, Nick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, I can only move through the first half of the meeting that quickly. All right, 13A. There's nobody here. Approval of the purchase of desktop and laptop computers. I'm assuming everybody's read the information about the request for a 20% premium because of the volatility in pricing right now. There's 2 motions to be made. Any review, questions, anything we need to clarify for anyone? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Police Chief Tom Henley's request to purchase 2 desktop computers for not to exceed cost of $3,840.
Second.
Thank you, Farhad and Lindsay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I further move to approve Town Manager Kathy Ramsey's request to purchase 1 laptop and 3 desktop computers for a not to exceed cost of $8,760.
Second.
thank you, Lindsay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I never thought computers cost this much money.
Yeah, well, it's
I paid
Kathleen's
$500.
computer.
Well, I
It's
think,
like a battle
you
station.
know, they're probably especially,
Yeah, I
isn't-
know.
yeah, it's not like just a run-of-the-mill off the shelf. They're probably set up.
So
Yeah.
my computer running.
My computer run-of-the-mill. So item 13B is approval of purchase order for sewer line cleaning, pump station cleaning, and disposal of main pump station grease. So, given the time of the evening, on this particular instance, I have a concern about sole source purchase and not having enough information for why, because I do know there's another company in Vermont that has jet trucks and vacuum pumping capabilities, and that's Hardigan. And I'm just curious if this company does something that company can't, and that was the reason. There was no memo from,
They didn't put up to bid.
yeah, I don't think so, because
It's sole source.
Sole source,
Yeah.
so that usually means it's not put to bid. There wasn't a memo that indicated the reason for the sole source.
Right,
Like
that's
typically
right, yeah.
we're buying parts that we can't get from somewhere else, or So I would like to request,
Kathleen, is it?
oh, go ahead, Kathleen. Do you have?
I don't have anything to add, but I will follow up with Bob Wells for the next meeting.
And this isn't time sensitive. I mean, he can keep doing what he needs to do if we put this off a bit.
It's 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. So do we need to make a motion to table, Kathleen?
No need.
All right, let's move on to 13C. Approval of a purchase order for placing a septic mixer at the wastewater treatment facility. Now this one, I do see the need for the sole source exception in this case. And am good moving forward with the purchase of a new mixer as Bob's recommended.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a good memo, I thought, with this one too.
Breakdown, yeah.
So any questions, further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
I move to award a contract to Xylem Water Solutions under the sole source exception to the town purchasing policy for the replacement of a flaked septic